Okay, in this video, we are going to talk about components, JSX, and props in React. Last time we discussed files and folder structures of the React project built with the Vite. I want to run this project. I will do Vite dev and it will be running on this port. Can open up this link. So here it is running. So this is what currently being rendered on the screen. Talking about the components are just reusable piece of the code that are used in the React to do the abstractions. So instead of like writing all of the code in like one single file or single function, we divide them into different components. So let's say like I have a button that I want to reuse again and again. So instead of like making the button here again and again, I'll make in a file for button.jsx, and I can do RAFCE. This one by default won't work, but you can install an extension which is this one, ES7 plus React Redux. It gives you snippets for that. So RAFCE, and it would add in this code for you. Next is like here you want to make in a button. You can open up a button, close a button, and say it like some button, click me, and your button is ready. And if you have some classes, you can give it class. An important thing to notice is like in HTML you just say class, but in JSX this is what your JSX is. Okay, in JSX you will use class name because class is a reserved keyword in React. Right now this is a functional components, but there are class based components as well, such as like class, button, extends, component. You can do the same with class based components as well. So to avoid the confusion with this class, React has come up with class name. JSX is not mandatory, but it is used in most of the React projects. I can give it any class I want, it doesn't matter. And if I want to use this this button in another component, I have to export it at the bottom, export default button. And to use it here, first I need to import that or do whatever. A name can be anything because it's a default export. And then from button. Okay, so the button is important. And how can we utilize a component is by opening these brackets, button, and the name of that component, and then / like this. If I go here, so this button is right here. Like this is the simplest component, but there can be like some small components, there can be bigger components. It depends on the needs, but this is the simplest example of a component. There will be hundreds of the components in a real application. And one more thing is like if you have the name of the component is always going to be first letter capital. Okay, the name of the first letter is going to be capital, but tags that we are going to use are going to be lowercase. And this is whatever I'm writing here is JSX. And why it is called JSX? JSX helps you to write HTML like code. It's not HTML, but it helps you write HTML similar code. Helps you write HTML. And why it is called JSX, JavaScript syntactic. Let me see, JSX full form. It is called JavaScript syntax extension to JavaScript, which helps you write HTML code in React. And why it is called syntactically syntax extension to JavaScript. Why it is called syntax expression to JavaScript is because you can inside of the HTML, you can use JavaScript as well. You can use JavaScript expressions like conditions or some expressions. Let's say I have a variable here. Let content, this is string, and you want to utilize that variable here. You can say here comma, and then to use JavaScript inside of JSX, you can open and close curly brackets first, then the name of that variable, or depending on what you want to do, but you have to open and close curly brackets to embed your JavaScript. Here it is, your string. Okay, next thing is so this is JSX. These are components. You can make more components. Let's take in an example of one more component. Maybe let's say like list.jsx. I can make a list here. RFCE. I can make a list here. UL. LI. A. List item. And one more thing is like there needs to be at least one parent element. If I try to add in like P here, it will give me errors. There needs to be at least one wrapper element like a div for each component. But if you do not have div, if you don't want to use any component as a parent element, you can just keep them empty. And this is called react.fragment. You can name it react.fragment as well. It means the same thing. You can keep it empty, or you can type in react.fragment. But what does it mean is like there will be nothing rendered on the screen. It's just like you're telling there is a wrapper for all of the content. Okay. If I want to render out this component here, I will just go here. I'll say list component, press enter. It automatically imports the list for me, and it will render out the list for me. Next is like if I wanna like this data for the list, I wanna pass this data from app. Like I have this data store here in some variable list item. I can use this variable and pass it as a prop. What is prop? Prop is a short form for property, and we call it prop in the React. And I can name it anything because it's a list item. I would say list item equal what I want to pass in. I want to pass in content. Okay, and then I can take in that prop here in this parenthesis. Either you can take in, you can just call it props or anything, it doesn't matter, or you can directly restructure your props here, content here. If you just say props, this is gonna come up as an object. We can see this props in our browser as well. Right click, inspect, console. So this is the props object that we're getting in. We know from here list.jsx, line number 4. If I expand this, this is an object, and all of the props will be here because there can be more than one prop. Right now it's just one prop, and they come up in an object. So we can destructure that object here, and whatever the prop that we want to take in this component, we can take it like content. Or other ways, like if you're taking in props, then you can say props dot list item. Either way, destructure them directly in here, or if you do not want to destructure, then you can go with props dot list item. And then in here I can refer to that variable. It's because this is JavaScript that I'm embedding in the JSX. I have to use curly brackets around them. And if I go to my browser again, they are still the same. But important thing to notice about the props is like you cannot modify, you cannot change the value in the child component where you are using the props. You cannot change the value of the props in this component. You can change the value here, but you cannot change the value here. You can just use them. Okay. Next thing is props always work from top to bottom. Like you pass from the parent element to the child component. So this is your child component and this is your parent component. And you can pass in the same prop to this component or other components as well. I hope that clears up components, JSX, and props. Next video, we're going to talk about states in React.